Hello, and welcome to the 66th episode of the show Too Long Didn't Scroll, the show available on YouTube, most podcast apps, and now platforms like TikTok and Instagram for you to get your daily news fix quickly and without hassle. Every day, a new episode is uploaded for you to get your content and leave, without spending countless hours scrolling through your newsfeed. March the 26th of 2023 marks the 66th day of uploads from TLDS, and the notable events of today start in the American state of Mississippi. In the past few days, starting on March the 24th, a statewide storm surge composed of severe weather and tornado outbreaks swept across the state, proceeding to kill at least 25 people across Mississippi and Alabama, and destroying countless homes and pieces of infrastructure. As of today, in response to the catastrophe, American President Joe Biden has approved a state of emergency to be placed on the affected areas effective immediately, and that substantial federal aid will be granted to especially affected counties as tornado and flash flood warnings ring across the regions. We now concern ourselves with China and the Central American nation of Honduras. Historically, Honduras has aligned itself with the Republic of China, otherwise known as Taiwan, and not the People's Republic of China, and has continuously only recognized Taiwan as the world's only quote-unquote China, having maintained friendly relations with them ever since the Chinese Civil War in the late 1940s. However, as of today, it appears that Honduras has now left the newly shrunk list of nations recognizing Taiwan over China, announcing that new diplomatic relations will now be officially established between Honduras and the PRC. This shift in diplomatic rhetoric comes ahead of an announcement that China, which disregards Taiwan's claims to independence and claims it as its own territory, would be funding the construction of a new hydroelectric dam in Honduras, and that strong economic links would be established between the two countries. Ahead of this announcement, Taiwan's foreign ministry accused Honduras of giving into the PRC's lures, and that Honduras was taking the opportunity to secure cash for itself. Moving on over to the country of Israel, protests are continuing to erupt across the country as the government under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is pushing a proposal that would give the Israeli executive branch more power over the judicial branch through reforms that would limit the power of the Supreme Court and place the executive branch on a significantly elevated level above the judiciary branch. The Supreme Court's powers to exercise judicial review would be severely limited, and the Israeli legislature, the Knesset, would receive the power to appoint and dismiss judges as much as it pleases. Angered over the perceived attempts of Netanyahu's government to cement its power over Israel, people took to the streets where they were met with tear gas and water cannons by police, and a high-profile dismissal over this new proposal has occurred today with the dismissal of Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, who suggested that in response to the protests, that legislative discussion over the proposal should be paused. Netanyahu responded to these calls with Gallant's immediate dismissal and stated on Twitter that his government would stand against any sort of quote-unquote refusal. In other news, 29 migrants immigrating from sub-Saharan Africa were killed after 2 migrant boats sunk in the Mediterranean off the Tunisian coast, and legislative elections are now taking place in Cuba and Turkmenistan.